Hello and welcome back to another of the microbiology videos. In this one I just want to talk very briefly about some of the methods of sampling to find out how contaminated a lab is or some other place. Again, this is quite a simplified version. It's kind of more like what we do in schools and colleges. Obviously a clean room will have very specific protocols. But I just want to demonstrate some of the main ways that I could try to find out if this environment where I'm doing my microbiology work is clean. Now, one of the most obvious ways is simply by swabbing, by moistening a cotton swab with distilled water which has been sterilised in an autoclave and then rubbing that swab on an agar plate. So I'll just briefly demonstrate that. As always, I need to label a plate before I add anything that might grow bacteria. So I'll put my name, I'll put where I'm going to swab, and I'll put the date. People have an idea what it is. As mentioned previously, plates should be close to a Bunsen burner, but also within your site, so we'll have to compromise. Right, I think I'll see how contaminated my Bunsen burner is. So I have a swab which is sterile until it comes out of its packaging. I'll open it, being careful not to contaminate it on anything. I need to soak it in sterile water, trying to keep the water sterile. And I will just rub it over, in this case, my base of my Bunsen burner with its tube. I'm seeing if this has become contaminated. And then I will simply lift the lid of my plate, remembering never to take a plate lid away so bacteria can drop in. Rub my swab gently over the jelly, and as I've no idea what's in it, it's always safer to stick it in disinfectant. And that's basically that. If there are any bacteria on my Bunsen burner, they should have been picked up by the swab, rubbed on the plate. So now, and this I think is what one doesn't normally see in a commercial facility, okay, what now? Well, obviously this needs to go away into an incubator, in college at sort of 28, 30, for 2 or 3 days, and then I will get it back and look at it to see if there are any bacteria growing on it. Obviously, if you swab a surface in a clean room and there are bacteria on the plate when you get it back, you are in trouble. You're notified that there are bacteria on the plate. So I swabbed a few places earlier in the week. Yes, I did. So, first of all, I hope you can see this a bit if I angle it, not very well unfortunately. I swabbed a computer keyboard. Unfortunately what's grown is mould, which is a sort of white filamentous stuff, and so it's pretty difficult to see without putting your nose on it. There might be it is here, but I don't know if it's really visible the way the camera works, and with only one person it's kind of difficult to zoom. Now, I hope you can see this one. The lift button is always a very good source of bacteria. We've actually got 1, 2, 3 colonies. One of them is massive. If you look closely, actually, there's a lot of smaller ones as well. These actually look like skin bacteria, though obviously I haven't done any tests to tell. Usually I get a lot of E. coli, which, as you know, is an indicator for fecal contamination, but not apparently this time, possibly because it's the summer and students aren't in. And I hear the drilling has started up again. Every time I start a video, they start drilling. The other place I swabbed was the loo seat, and the students love swabbing that, and they always think they're going to get a lot of bacteria off the loo seat, but in fact there are only 2 colonies, so there were only 2 bacteria picked up. and again they look like normal skin bacteria. In practice the loos are kept an awful lot cleaner than most of the rest of the college because everyone expects them to be dirty. Right, so that's swabbing. The next thing I would have got you to do if you had been in college is simply to do a settle plate. So a settle plate, you just take a plate, put it down in the area you want to sample. And the idea of a settle plate is to sample contamination of the air. You're looking to see where the bacteria are dropping down from the air onto surfaces. So literally all you do with a settle plate is you take the lid off and start a timer. When I do this in the lab, I normally say leave it 3 minutes, and that's basically it. The idea is to check that the air is clean, the air is not depositing bacteria on your work. After your designated time, you just put your lid on, and again, plate goes away to be incubated. So that's that. The final thing which might be done in a microbiology lab is finger dabs. The idea here is to check that the person who is doing the work is not contaminating everything they touch. Now obviously, as you saw in the video on correct sterile technique, before I started making this video I turned on my Bunsen, sterilised my washed my hands with antibacterial soap, put on my lab coat, wipe my bench, etc., the normal things, but you don't want to watch me doing that. But I will just see how effective the hand gel that they handed out during COVID is. I guess I could investigate that. Ideally, rubbing my hands with hand gel, and of course touching the container. And all I would do to carry out finger dabs is normally I would press each of my fingers and my thumb onto the agar. I would then normally wash my hands afterwards, but I'll just use some hand gel. Right. So again, I would incubate that for 72 hours. If I was maintaining hand hygiene correctly, there shouldn't be any bacteria on the plate. If there are, this would say there's something wrong with my hand cleaning technique. Obviously, in a lab or in a SEMA clean room, you normally would not do this just at the beginning of your shift, but towards the end of a shift to check that you were not gradually building up contamination on your hands as the day goes on. Right, so I did some finger dabs earlier and incubated them. Here are some finger dabs where I did not attempt to clean my hands beforehand. I went round touching grubby surfaces and running them through my hair, and I think you can see, I can't get it so there is not too much reflection. I hope you can see these yellow splodges. They're usually yellow or white because there are two common skin bacteria, Staph albus and M. luteus, that are white and yellow respectively. I then attempted to clean my fingers, and the news is not so good. My fingers are nice and clean, but I hope you can see my thumb cleaning technique needs working on. So this tells me that when I think I've cleaned my hands, preparatory to doing a microbiology experiment, I perhaps haven't done it as well as I should have done. And finally, you recollect I told you this theory that we light a Bunsen and work next to it because the rising hot air stops. Right, well I thought I'd investigate that by opening a plate for 3 minutes near a Bunsen and away from a Bunsen. And I've always had mixed results in that in the past, but as I hope you can see, the plate that I opened for 3 minutes right here, next to the Bunsen, is in fact clear, so it works a bit. Whereas the plate that I opened at the back of the room and left for 3 minutes has actually got, can you see it? I think you probably can, one culture, one colony of some sort of strange pink stuff growing on it. So okay, there was one bacterium dropped out of the air onto the plate when I left it open away from the Bunsen, and nothing dropped on the plate when it was by the Bunsen, so hey, it kind of works amazingly. Right, so that's sampling the lab. There are obviously other types of sampling which we have mentioned in the lessons, but those are the obvious ones one can easily demonstrate in the lab. Right, thank you very much. See you in a bit.